Have you ever faced death and found yourself outside your own body, floating between time and eternity? I did. One moment I was in a crashing aircraft, the next I was everywhere. I saw the light. I felt a love so deep it changed the way I live to this day. This isn't just a story about survival. It's a story about what's waiting for us beyond the veil. And what I saw will stay with you forever. If this moved something in you, don't scroll away. Hit subscribe to join a growing community of people exploring near-death experiences, hope, and healing. Drop a comment. Have you ever felt something you couldn't explain? And please share this story. You never know who might be silently searching for the light. Because sometimes one story can be the turning point in someone's life. I never thought the sky would betray me. At 24, I was in the prime of my life, fit, sharp, and fiercely focused. As a naval engineer, I served aboard long-range reconnaissance aircraft stationed at Silver Ridge Air Station, nestled along the wind-kissed shores of Oahu. It was 1982, and tensions were high across the Pacific. We were deep into Tactical Halo 82, the largest joint military exercise in the region, and every mission came with its share of adrenaline, responsibility, and quiet risk. I wasn't the kind of man who entertained spiritual ideas. Growing up in a working-class suburb of Michigan, I was raised on logic, discipline, and the value of doing your job right the first time. Faith, as I saw it, was something for chaplains and families at funerals. My comfort came from routine checking engine specs, recalibrating fuel systems, and flying sorties with Crew Echo 6, my second family in the air. That morning felt like so many before it. We gathered at dawn, sipping stale coffee from white foam cups, tossing out dry jokes to shake the edge off our nerves. I walked my pre-flight inspection on the Orion 5, a heavy 4-engine turboprop monster that tipped the scales at over 140,000 pounds when fully fueled. We had a 12-hour ocean patrol ahead of us. My mind, like it always did before a long flight, drifted home to Emily and to our 2.5-year-old son, Jack. I'd promised her I'd be home for Sunday pancakes, and I meant it. As we climbed past 10,000 feet, the Orion groaned under its own weight. That wasn't unusual, but something stirred in my chest. Not fear, just a strange, unfamiliar quiet. A hush that didn't come from the engines. Then it happened. The leftmost engine sputtered. Failed. Red lights blinked. Voices sharpened. Emergency codes crackled through the headset. I didn't panic. Training took over. This wasn't my first engine failure. But something about this day felt different. As we circled the airfield to burn fuel and get down to safe landing weight, a deeper feeling stirred inside me. Something beyond engineering, beyond reason. I tried to shake it off. This was just another mission. But a quiet voice somewhere deep inside already knew. This day wouldn't end like any other. It happened quickly, though I would later recall each second with the detail of a slow-motion film. The number 1 engine outermost on the left gave out just as the Orion 5 reached cruising altitude. The plane shuddered, not violently, but with a sickening drag, like a sled hitting thick gravel. Within seconds, the flight deck buzzed with clipped commands, flashing red indicators, and the subtle shift in engine tone only someone like me, a trained engineer, would catch. My eyes moved without thought. Gauges, fuel flow, hydraulics, each panel telling part of a story none of us wanted to hear. Number 1's gone. Feathering the prop said Lieutenant Alden Voss, our aircraft commander, with impressive calm. He was seasoned, sharp, and just a little too confident, traits I had admired until that day. We were too heavy to land immediately. Standard protocol meant circling to burn off fuel until the aircraft dropped beneath its maximum landing weight of 110,000 pounds. The Orion looped out over the ocean just beyond Barber's Point, the big turboprops humming low like a distant storm. For the next 45 minutes I ran checks, adjusted systems, and helped plot our approach back to the airfield. Outwardly, I performed my job to the letter. Inwardly, a shadow began to grow. I kept thinking about Emily's voice, about Jack's fingers curled around my thumb, about pancakes. Ordinary blessed Sunday pancakes. Our final approach began smoothly, at least by emergency standards. We came in fast because the aircraft was still above optimal weight. Parallel runways stretched before us, surrounded by open tarmac and the silver glint of emergency response vehicles. I could see the fire trucks already in position, 6 of them in total, spaced out evenly like sentinels in a ritual. A necessary precaution. Usually. We landed hard, main gear touched down with a satisfying thud, but as the nose wheel kissed the asphalt, something felt wrong. The plane jerked right too hard too soon. Voss, perhaps overcompensating, had thrown in the wrong rudder input. Instead of correcting the drift, he deepened it. The Orion veered off the runway, dragging 140,000 pounds of American steel and fuel across hot pavement toward the nearest fire truck. There was no screaming, no dramatics, just the awful certainty of impact rushing to meet us at over 150 miles per hour. I saw the truck clearly, especially the man on the water cannon wearing the classic silver, fire-retardant suit, frozen like a deer in a floodlight. His mouth open in a scream I couldn't hear, but I felt it. Every molecule of fear in that man's body surged into mine. And then something extraordinary happened. Time stopped obeying. I felt a lurch, not in the aircraft, but within myself. A tug like my chest was unzipping from the inside out. And then suddenly, impossibly, I wasn't just in the aircraft anymore. I was above it, outside of it, floating. Yet simultaneously I remained in my seat, looking out, touching the control panels, heart pounding. And somehow, impossibly again, I was also everywhere else. I could see the wingtip just inches from scraping the corner of the fire truck. I could see the fireman's eyes widen as the spinning blades of engine 4 passed by close enough to catch his breath. I could see the entire field, runways, grass control tower, all in perfect synchronized stillness. And then I became the debris. Somewhere in the turbulence, a Pepsi can, just an old discarded 12-ounce aluminum can, was kicked up into the air. My awareness latched onto it. I saw the logo, the spinning motion, even the brown liquid spraying out from the punctured seam. That spray, atomized mid-air, scattering into 1,000 shimmering droplets. And I was there in the droplets as the droplets. I saw with perfect clarity. Not with eyes, but with knowing. Every tiny particle danced in precise rhythm like a symphony conducted by laws older than physics. No chaos, no confusion. Just perfection. A deeper calm washed through me. Even though the scene should have been terrifying, it wasn't. It was right. Every turn of the propeller, every swirl of dust, every scream that never reached my ears, it all fit. Every event unfolded exactly as it had to. There was no mistake. I wasn't dead. Not yet. But I had crossed into something. Boundary. A veil. And that veil was whispering, "You are more than this moment." Back inside the Orion, the brakes groaned, tires screeched, and the aircraft skidded partially off the runway. The fire trucks followed close behind, sirens, silent, engines low. We had stopped. But my journey had just begun. That night I couldn't sleep. Though the aircraft had landed, the adrenaline hadn't. The memory of that Pepsi and the swirling debris, the sensation of being everywhere and nowhere, it clung to me. I'd sat through a military debriefing, nodded along with the safety assessment, even chuckled nervously with crewmates about Voss's legendary landing. But inside I was shaking. Something had changed, and I didn't understand it. At home, Emily was already asleep. Jack had left a wooden airplane by the foot of the bed, one of those simple toys with spinning plastic propellers. I smiled and placed it gently on the nightstand. I crawled into bed, muscles sore from tension and effort. With my eyes shut, I whispered a quiet prayer, not the polished kind from church pews, but a ragged human one. "Thank you," I breathed, "for whatever that was. Thank you. And Lord, if I ever get to see something like that again, I don't know. I think I'd like that." It wasn't a plea, just a murmur of curiosity from a man who'd peeked past the curtain. And then I slept. At some point, maybe around 300 a.m., maybe earlier, everything shifted. There was no dream, no tunnel, no transition. I simply was. Conscious. Awake. But not in bed. Not in my body. I found myself floating in a darkness so pure it wasn't empty but full. It wasn't frightening. It felt like standing in a vast cathedral at night. There was space, yes, but also a presence. Then ahead of me, distant at first, a light appeared. Not a light bulb or fire, but something wholly other. It glowed white with threads of gold and warmth, and it moved not forward but outward as though it was unfolding reality itself. I felt it before I understood it. The light wasn't just illumination. It was emotion, power, memory, love. It wasn't outside me, it knew all of me. Every failure, every doubt, every kindness I never spoke out loud. The moment I realized this, I fell to my knees, though I had no legs. My spirit knelt. Something within me recognized what I was facing. The source, the creator, the one. I wasn't afraid. That surprised me. I'd expected fear, judgment, shame. But instead, there was welcome. Warm, radiant welcome. The light poured over me like a river of sunlight and forgiveness soaking into places inside myself I didn't know were dry. And for the first time in my life, not just as a sailor or a husband or a father, but as a soul, I felt completely and unconditionally loved. Not admired, not appreciated. Loved. A force so immense it made earthly affection seem like a faint echo. I tried to speak, but no words came. There was no need. The light understood everything, every thought, every question, every tear that had never fallen. The closest thing to words I could form were 3 breathless syllables that came from the deepest part of me. Oh, my goodness. And then something amazing happened. Goodness itself answered. The essence of goodness, pure and vibrant, exploded through me like a sunrise inside my soul. I felt joy, peace, ecstasy, and stillness all at once. I was no longer in front of the light. I was within it. It was home. Not a place I'd visited. Not a dream. Home. And then stranger still celebration. There were no trumpets, no voices. But I could feel the rejoicing like the entire universe was holding a party because I had come back. It wasn't ego. It wasn't flattery. It was simply truth. I was a beloved piece of something eternal, and I was known. The light wasn't just celebrating my arrival. It had missed me. It was as if every star, every atom of creation had paused to say Nathaniel's home. We see him. We remember him. I floated, no longer concerned with questions. Time meant nothing. All I wanted was to stay, to be one with the light, to merge into that endless current of belonging. But something pulled at me, not forcibly, gently, like a hand on the shoulder of someone who's lingered too long. Not yet, the presence seemed to whisper, not in language but in feeling. You still have something to do. I resisted silently, begging to remain. But the light never argued. It only loved. With a final wave of warmth, it receded, not in distance but in brightness, like a dimmer switch slowly turning down. And then I gasped. I was sitting up in bed, arms outstretched as if reaching for something no longer there. My face was wet with tears. The room was dark, but no longer empty. The light had followed me. My bedroom glowed not brightly but unmistakably with a shimmer like stars dancing behind thin curtains. At the foot of the bed, the wall wasn't solid. It rippled like water catching the last light of day. I looked to my right. Emily lay undisturbed, breathing softly. I wanted to shake her, to shout, "Do you see this? God is in our bedroom?" But something held me still. This moment wasn't for sharing. Not yet. So I sat in silence, the echo of infinity still humming in my chest, the shimmer on the wall quietly pulsing. And I wept. Not from fear, not from sadness, but from the unbearable beauty of being seen and still being loved. I didn't know how long I sat there, arms still half raised, chest rising in uneven sobs. My palms were open as if waiting for the light to return, or maybe just reluctant to let go. Around me, the air still shimmered with a soft radiance. The room glowed faintly as though 1,000 tiny stars had settled gently on the walls, humming in a language too old for words. I kept watching the far wall at the foot of the bed. It was no longer solid, at least not in the way walls should be. Instead, it moved almost like light dancing on water. There was no sound, but the stillness had weight to it, like being inside a chapel after the last hymn had faded. I turned my head slightly. Emily was still asleep, her back to me, her breathing steady. I could see the gentle rise and fall of her shoulders beneath the flannel sheet. Somehow she hadn't stirred through any of this. How could she not see it? How could anyone sleep through this? I looked back at the wall and whispered, "Was that real?" The room said nothing, but something in my chest stirred. A knowing. Yes, it had happened. And just like that, the shimmer began to change. Not in a flash, not instantly, but gradually, like autumn leaves fading, or a sunset pulling back behind a mountain ridge. The light drew inward, shrinking from the corners, its glow dimming, softening, folding into itself. I watched it retreat, helpless. There were no words to stop it, no gesture to hold it in place. All I could do was mourn its passing. And then it was gone. Not ripped away, not stolen, just withdrawn. The wall was only a wall again, beige, flat, familiar. But it wasn't the same. And neither was I. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, hands covering my face. I didn't weep like before. The tears had passed. What remained now was the ache of absence, the bittersweet knowing that I had touched something eternal and been returned to the temporary. Morning arrived slowly. The sky outside our window shifted from dark slate to pale rose. Sunlight spilled across the carpet inch by inch, erasing the last traces of whatever had happened during the night. When Emily finally stirred and rolled over, her eyes opened to see me sitting upright, staring ahead like I hadn't blinked in hours. "Nate," she said softly. "What's wrong?" I turned to her eyes, damp voice low. "I saw something," I said. "No, I was in something, and it saw me." She sat up, concerned. "You're scaring me." "What happened?" And for the first time, I told someone. I told her everything. Not just about the landing, not just about the out-of-body experience. I told her about the light, the love, the feeling of home, the shimmer, the wall, the aching return. And Emily, bless her, didn't interrupt. She held my hand and listened the way only someone who truly loves you can, with no need to fix, no urge to doubt. Just presence, just grace, just love. The days that followed weren't spectacular. There were no more visitations, no more glowing walls, no grand pronouncements from the sky. But something had taken root inside me, something deep and irreversible. I could feel it in my chest like the afterglow of a song that had once filled a room, but now only echoed faintly in memory. And yet the echo was enough. I began rising earlier, not because I had to, but because there was a stillness in those first moments of morning that reminded me of what I'd seen, what I'd felt. I'd pour my coffee, step out onto the back porch, and just stand there watching the sky change colors as the sun climbed. The same sky I had flown beneath hundreds of times now felt different. It felt alive. Emily noticed the changes before I said much about them. I was softer now, not weak, not passive, just gentler. I didn't bark at the news when it came on. I didn't snap when the sink leaked or when Jack spilled juice on the carpet. I laughed more genuinely from a quiet place I'd forgotten existed. "I don't know who you are lately," Emily teased one afternoon while folding laundry. "But I like him." I smiled, kissed her forehead, and went back to helping Jack line up toy soldiers across the coffee table. But privately, I wrestled. I had seen something so much greater than myself, so much more real than anything I'd ever been taught. And now I was expected to carry on, like everything was the same. Drive the same roads, eat the same meals, talk about the weather like none of it had happened. That's when it hit me. It wasn't about waiting for the light to come back. It was about becoming the light I had seen. I didn't need to preach. I didn't need to write a book or climb a mountain or convert the world. I just needed to love, really love, and not just when it was easy. That shift began in the smallest of places. I started holding eye contact longer in the grocery store checkout line. I called my brother not for a favor, not to rehash old grudges, but just to say, "Hey, I've been thinking about you." I helped a young mom load bags into her car at the commissary without making it feel like a charity gesture. And every night I said a quiet prayer, not out of obligation, but out of participation. I understood now. Every thought was a prayer. Every intention shaped the fabric of what comes next. It wasn't superstition. It was sacred responsibility. The concept might have sounded too philosophical if I hadn't lived it. But I had. And because I had, I knew that even a stray, idle thought carries weight. That's why I tried to make them lighter, kinder. I began offering the benefit of the doubt where I used to jump to conclusions. I paused before judging, asking myself, what if I'm wrong? What if they're just hurting? I no longer cared to argue about religion or politics. Not because I didn't care, but because I realized being right was far less important than being present. What I'd seen in that light, that vast, loving source, wasn't tied to doctrine or denomination. It didn't wear a cross, carry a book, or fly a flag. It just loved. And it loved me not because I'd earned it, not because I understood it, but because it couldn't help itself. That kind of love doesn't just visit. It transforms. Years passed, and I carried the memory of that night like a gentle flame, cupped between my hands. I never turned it into spectacle. I never felt the need to prove it to anyone. When people were ready, when they were hurting or lost or searching, I shared it. Softly, with reverence. And often that was all they needed. A story, a truth, a reminder that they were seen, that they were loved, that home wasn't just a place we returned to after work or war or time. Home was the light, and the light is still waiting for us, all of us, to remember, to live like it's already here, because in truth it is, and always has been. Thank you for spending time with this story. If it touched your heart, even just a little, if it brought you a sense of peace, stirred something within you, or helped you feel less alone, then I'd like to ask just one small favor. Please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications. Every subscription isn't just a number. It's a message. A message that stories like this matter. That there's still room for quiet truths and soul-deep reflections in the noise of the internet. And if you know someone, just one person, who could use a little light in their day, please share this with them. We may not change the whole world overnight, but we can reach one heart at a time. Thank you for being here. And remember, the light is still with you. Always.